Hey, Christ Baptist. This is Ron Duty. Mark has been nice enough to ask me to do devotion, and so he assigned me Psalm 61. And so I'm going to read a couple of verses on that. It simply says, "Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I will call to you. When my heart is faint, lead me to the rock that is higher than I." Those are just the first three verses. There's just a few things I want to pull out there just for you to consider. Number one, he says, "Hear my cry, O God." Some people, and this is a personality thing, can feel like they have trivial needs that are beneath God's interest or time. And the Bible teaches very clearly that is not the truth. Psalm 103 says, "He knows our frame and that we're but dust." The psalmist says he keeps our tears in a bottle. And Hebrews chapter 4 says that Jesus, our high priest, empathizes with the things that we go through, our hurts, our ups and our downs. So the first thing I would say is if you're the type of person who feels like that somehow you shouldn't bother God with things that are bothering you, I would say, I understand. But number two, that's not a biblical position. The second thing I would say is to consider that God's emotional life is not the same as ours. It is great to know that we can relate to God. There are things called communicable and incommunicable attributes with God. That means things that we understand, like love and mercy. And there are things that are incommunicable that we don't understand, like infinity and omnipotence. So God is different than we are, and that no doubt extends to his emotional life. And what I would simply say is that God is not sad and wringing his hands. You think, well, if I created the world and saw all the world and the problems they have, and I heard all the prayers of sad, desperate people, I would be in a state of depression. Well, you or I might be, but that is not the life of God. Psalm 103 says he sits in heaven. He does whatsoever he pleases. Jesus may have been a man of sorrows upon the earth, but now he's exalted at the right hand of God. So the idea that we hear in songs sometimes that God is sad and God is crying because the world is not the way he wished it were is simply not true. So, number one, God cares about your emotional life. Number two, God is not depressed, wishing things would be different. And the third thing I would say, it kind of ties into number two. When he says, "Hear our cry," and it tells us of how he cares for us, we also need to keep in mind that God is different than we are. That means the things that really worry us, bother us, he sees in a different light, and he may see a providential result he has. He may see it in the light of eternity, but he may not see it as you do, and that may affect how prayers are answered. An example would be when your children are small. They'll be learning to ride a bike. They fall, they scrape their knee. They cry like they've been shot. But you know they're fine. So the way you look at it as a parent is a little bit different than the way they look at it as the child. And Isaiah 55 tells us that God's ways, they aren't our ways. And that his thoughts are not our thoughts. And the psalmist has this rhetorical question to where God is speaking when he says, "You think I'm like you, but I'm not." So this is not something to be scared of, to feel down about. It lets you know that God is much more understanding and much more in charge and much more aware of the things that we go through than even what we are. Well, I hope you're having a good week. I look forward to seeing you again in person, hopefully sometime in the near future. Thanks. See y'all later.